Ano nyo ngayon?
Okay, so starting na?
Yeah.
What an intro. Starting na. Okay. So, it's me again, Tobie, and my topic for today is not pathetic, caricatures. My talk about NPCs, how to create them, how to make them memorable, and many of these tips can also be applied to PCs. Because normally when you talk about PCs, you're talking about characters that you feel are special in their own way. And it's not enough for them just to be special. They have to be awesome, cool. They have to be the best type of characters. You're not just playing the thief, you're playing the best thief in the world. Or you're not just playing the swordsman. You're playing someone whose sword has guided him through this and that. We all love making stories for our characters. And GMs, we get envious. Because when GMs talk about NPCs, usually what happens is we have sad, repetitive, and boring NPCs. A large reason this tends to happen is because many GMs, especially new ones, approach their NPCs the way computer games. Now, not all NPCs were made to be boring. To be honest, it's perfectly fine that the majority of them are, but if you want to be able to make your players feel, if you want to make your players react, feel invested emotionally to the story, then you need to have characters who connect. Many of you probably recognize this. This is from a computer game. And the reason why I'm citing it is because this simple statement was actually something they added late in the game. Not because it was needed, not because the story demanded it, but just because they wanted a little bit more personality to be added to their NPCs. So the line, "I used to be an adventurer until I took an arrow to the knee," was one of the many lines they came up for that game. And the next thing you know, it's become so popular, it was referenced in shows, it's used in t-shirts, and so on and so forth. So memorable does not have to steal the show. It doesn't have to steal the thunder from the PCs. It just has to be enough that the players, even after the game, still find themselves laughing about it, talking about it. It makes them feel invested both as the characters and as themselves. So a typical scene in most games is that the NPC has a scripted path. They have a singular role, they have a set of lines, and they just state it over and over again. I'd like to try to help people see NPCs in a different light. These are not what you need to make your NPCs more interesting. We don't need scripted lines, we don't need cool powers, we don't need them to have really well-written backstory or uber stats. All we need is what they discovered in the game, more personality. So here are some suggestions on how to achieve them. And in hopes of making this faster, I will have an outline. So first is I'll identify the two types of NPCs that exist, which is basically the named and the unnamed ones. I will share my madre and padre tips on making characteristics for your NPCs to make them more interesting. I'll have my cheat sheet list of stuff you can do to enhance your NPCs, from coming up with names, a common problem both for PC creation and NPC creation. Coming up with traits and personalities, as well as developing the identities of the characters. And lastly, it's my Ask the NPCs, a list of possible questions to ask when you're not sure how to develop or how to shape the NPC better. And by asking these questions, you actually get to know the NPC better. So, if we have enough time, we'll have our BWTM, but wait, there's more, but I don't think we'll have time for that, so we'll see na lang. So for now, we'll start with the two kinds of NPCs. So in a typical game, our NPCs are sad. They exist only for the players and nothing else. And if you think if that NPC was alive, they would not like their life. But ultimately, that's the point, because NPCs come in two types. You have the named ones, and the named ones are the people who we tend to recognize better. And we have the unnamed ones who sadly do nothing but routinary tasks. So named ones tend to have recurring scenes. The scenes may or may not be positive in nature, but they tend to happen repeatedly. Probably threatens or saves the lives of the PC at least once, whether it's the cleric who runs out of nowhere to save the players who are dying, or the innkeeper who provides you a place to stay and boards up the inn because the undead are coming. You know, the named NPCs are the ones who, you know, are just a few steps away from becoming a full-fledged player character. The unnamed ones tend to sell, they tend to do services, and they don't really care about anything else beyond that. They tend to have repeating interactions, and it's even possible you'll never see them again because the next time you shop, it's a different town, you don't care about the first one you went to. Now, both, as much as they're typical NPCs, can be enhanced with our madre-padre characteristics, as I call it. And what are these madre-padre things? So you have the nun, which is madre, for those who don't know the terms, and we have the padre. And they are basically named NPCs. They make mistakes. These are the nobleman who trusted this guy and turns out they were bandits. These are the cleric who's dying for assistance because their town's being overrun. The named NPCs, usually their role in the story is to first tell you how they fucked up, and now it's up to you guys to save them. The named ones tend to act on their own, and by acting on their own, the players are forced to react. By acting on their own, the story begins to move forward. Named NPCs tend to die meaningfully. You might have the unnamed ones, 5 of them charge forward, you swipe them with the sword, we move to the next fight, we don't care. But when the named one dies, the fight slows down and we focus on the death scene. We have the last few words as he asks you to please always remember his favorite drink. 1 lime, 2 parts tonic, and yay, Danger 5.
Danger.
Named NPCs, they reflect emotions. Your character's angry, pissed off, the people in the street won't notice because the unnamed ones don't even see you. The named one will come up to you, what's wrong? Why are you angry? The named ones are your sounding board. The named ones will reinforce what you're feeling. And a GM should keep that in mind. If a player, let's say, is happy, then he must make sure the named NPC goes, yay! Acknowledge that happiness. So that way, there's that reinforcement of connection. And lastly, the named PC enables. The named NPC enables. Player wants to break into the place, the named NPC has ideas. Player needs something to defeat the undead, the named NPC knows where to find something. It's the named ones who offer something to propel the player forward. Or, they're the ones who give the block that the players have to break through. The named one, the player needs to break into the cell, it's the named PC watching over the cell. So, there's that investment. Unnamed ones, maybe they have a backstory. Maybe they do more, but sometimes, at the most, they'll ask questions, and beyond that, nothing. And why are you in town? Oh, that's nice. I'm here to liberate. Oh, I see. You better be careful. But that's it. They won't offer to help you. They won't offer to secure. Once they start helping, that's when they become names.
Stay a while and listen.
Unnamed NPCs, they will declare the obvious because they have to. Reason, this is the GM having a spotlight. When a fight is happening, the players won't care. But when the unnamed NPCs go, there's a fight happening! The players will now notice. The unnamed NPCs also react uselessly. While the named ones will react and have failure and beg for help and the like, the unnamed ones, their reactions are probably just for laughing, just for reactions, but it won't change the status quo. It won't really even propel the players At the most, they laugh about it and focus on their scene. Unnamed ones, admittedly, are environmental. It's sad, but unnamed NPCs, GMs must learn to use them like part of set pieces. They're the crowds that don't matter.
They're the red coats.
Depends. Because sometimes the red coat might turn name.
Might.
So that's our Madre Padre system of identifying named and unnamed NPCs. Now what's interesting is, when you start mixing and matching them to make your NPCs more memorable. For instance, let's take Dory from Finding Nemo. She makes mistakes. She has a possible backstory, enough that she has an upcoming movie. She asks questions, but she acts on her own. She declares the obvious, and yet she still reacts to emotion, reflects emotions, and enables the main player, which is, in this case, the father. Not Nemo, the father. Oh. Did you watch the movie?
No.
Another example would be
Newt.
Yes, Newt of Aliens. She has a possible backstory, but stupidly they killed her off. She acts on her own. Those who've seen the movie probably remember that scene where she ducks into the tunnels and runs off, and she's all, Newt, wait! And she has to chase after her. She reflects emotions, and yet even as she acts on her own, she still reacts uselessly. She has to be rescued in the end. She enables. Ultimately, the best NPCs enable the PC. Keep in mind that you can also mix and match to create NPCs that the players will very much hate. And hating them is still a memorable approach. For example, we have this woman who claims to be Storm. Possible backstory? Yeah. We even had a scene of her as a kid, right? She asks questions, but she declares the obvious, doesn't she? She reflects emotions, but wow, she says environmental as her powers. I mean, you have someone who controls the frigging weather, and she does nothing for most of the movie, except for the scenes where she'll stare at the camera, her eyes turn white, and... and of course... the thing that ruined the prequels. So there. And, Jar Jar might strike me down for this, but that's... Oh. Just kidding. So, yeah. As you can see, whenever you do something unexpected with what people already expect, the thing becomes more memorable. So even something like Jar Jar can become a memorable experience if you play it right. And yes, at least he's not a sparkling memory. So, the tricks of the trade when it comes to NPC creation. The tricks for names, traits, and for identity. For a quick NPC creation when it comes to names, existing resources always are helpful. Phone directories, old yearbooks. For those who saw a certain movie, I don't want to spoil it. Looking around, you can build names by seeing terms you see around you. And I won't say what movie that is. You probably don't know what the movie is, even if I said it, but that's okay.
It's the usual movie. The usual movie, right?
Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
Then there's online resources. Baby name pages are a godsend when it comes to coming up with names for your character. Because one, it's gender specific. Two, it's nationalistic. If you want a Greek name, if you want a Russian name,
yes.
Baby names will help you. And the best part, they give the meaning.
Yes.
So suddenly you can go, my name is blank and it means this. And that's just awesome. Movie pages and IMDb is a great resource. You'll find a host of names when you click the complete cast.
Yeah.
When you look at the grips and the people who handle the sound effects and the like, you'll see all these cool names there that you can use. And the best part is, and they might sound strange, but you realize they're real names. And cosplayers. Cosplayers are a good resource because they... let's put it this way. When you bump into a page of a cosplayer, you're bound to fall into the rabbit hole and see all these other cosplayers doing characters you never heard of. And from there, you'll find names that might be fun and useful. Name charts. I do this in my games. I normally make a column, 3 columns. I write down names. I sometimes write down concepts or I leave it blank. And as the game progresses, oh, I used this name. I write down what concept I used it in. And then I write down any notes. So I have a steady list to use and I don't end up pausing too often asking, wait, I think of a name. Index cards was what I used to do when I was younger. I used to have separate index cards. This tends to happen for games with numerous locations, fantasy games for example. So if, let's say, it's based on Lord of the Rings, all my Rivendell NPCs are a set of cards in one envelope. All my characters for another city are in another envelope. So that way I can just, oh yeah, they're there. But that was, of course, before computers made it more easy. I also used to take old photo albums, those with those windows where you can slip in pictures, or those with the sticky layer. And then in magazines, when you see cool names and pictures, you cut them out and just put them there. So later during games, you flick and, okay, you're talking to this guy, and the names are there. So yeah, the stuff I used to do, and they help make it move faster. And there's the old diary and phone directories. You know those diaries Starbucks tries to trick you into getting by spending so much? And all those other diaries you get on New Year because everyone thinks you're not still using mobile devices. Normally there's those sections in the back for phones, phone numbers, name, phone number, blah blah blah. You can use those for your NPCs. They have nice organization there already. So you can recycle those. And there's of course NEC. Neighbors, exes, and your co-workers and classmates. You need a name. Okay, this character's annoying. Oh, who's that? Oh yeah, that office mate. Okay, she is, I won't say it, it's gonna be a line. And the like. So, whenever you need names, if your players are not people who work with you, then pull from your co-workers for names. If they're people who work with you, then maybe pull from your classmates, from your schoolmates, or from your exes. If you have few exes, I cannot help you. For traits and personalities, and yes, that's Nicolas Cage. Never be afraid to pirate. Look for your favorite concept, favorite characters. Oh, I love Gandalf, but I'll turn it into a woman and I'll redress her for this game.
But still with a pointy hat.
And a beard. But yeah, don't be afraid to pirate. You're not in a job where you have to be absolutely creative. You're in a job where you want to engage the players to have fun. So feel free to pirate. The idea is that I find pictures of actresses in roles that look interesting. Like let's say there's this picture of Monica Bellucci as the witch in Brothers Grimm. So I might want to use that image for a game, and I'll use that likeness. And now I know what she looks like, and I know what she dresses like. And having seen the movie, I know how she acts, and I can portray the NPC. So by choosing either a character or a movie actress or actor, you have that idea now how to portray them. Always consider the unique mannerisms. There's the tells, like maybe the guy, whenever he lies, he scratches his ear. Well, yeah, the place is locked up. Maybe they have habits. Try to answer the always blank and never blank. Like this character always drinks and never snores. Or maybe this character always hits on women and never says bad words. Just those little tricks starts making the NPC more interesting. For those who love to roleplay their characters, accent is there, unique catchphrases, habitual sayings and stutters. One of my favorite characters from a comic book is Svetlana from Tom Strong, because she just has a wrong command of English. So like in one scene, it's not readable here, in one scene where she wanted to say, I think he's pissed off at me, she goes, I think he's urinated at me. And she does that for all these other scenes. Like at one point she goes, "Oh, you're fornicating with me." And you as a reader realize, oh, that means fucking, but she's getting it wrong, and it just works. So I threw it in the game, and the players just loved it. That one of the players started to try to teach her to speak English better. And again, investment. You have players who care for your characters. Then there's of course quick NPC creation using the aspects of their identity, and that's from Will and Grace. Can't read it. Ah, yeah, there. Going down? Wow, you cut right to the chase, don't you? I like you. So there's body language. Consider how they approach things. People always scratch themselves. No one will admit it, but they're scratching their hands, or they tend to scratch their nose, or they tend to scratch their arm. Those little things might be little traits you might want to bring out to your characters. Imagine a cleric who can't help but always scratch his chest. And you know, while he's talking to you, well, the players will start, there's something wrong here. And, you know, it makes it more interesting. Spitting, pointing, you know the Filipino joke, we always point with our face. Those are little tricks and elements you could put into your characters. Maybe in your games, all elves act that way. They're very Pinoy. So elves would, you must find the towers that lead to the Dwarven Devil. There!
Mozart in the jungle.
I am Mozart in the jungle. I'm back.
That's a character who never turns her back.
She never leaves a room by turning her back. She'll always exit by backing up. Consider whether the character's tall or crouched. You might want to reflect that. I've mentioned that in mood games before. Props. Key items, specific clothing devices. She is always with alcohol in the show. She has it in her bag. She has a glass in her hand. Consider a character, for example, in a modern game who still uses a pager. Because he doesn't like smartphones. Just thinks it's wrong. And when you ask him, but there aren't any pager services anymore. No.
That's what they think.
Yeah. Or consider a character who, what's this? Likes touching hair. So when he talks to you, the next thing you know, reaches for your hair, strokes your hair.
Yeah.
Maybe when it comes from behind, smells you. Little touches like that. And again, the investment is stronger.
Doesn't use cell phones.
That's why it's the Charlie's Angels movie, right?
Yes. Consider their desires. Alcohol, food, choice of perfume, again using smell rather than visuals. Preference in style or sexual interest. A guy who always wears 1950s inspired clothing. Even if the game's already the modern day and based in the Philippines. And, it suddenly has that, okay, why is that person dressed like that?
Because I'm Brother Mike.
Another example, someone who wears only one type of set of clothing.
Uniform.
He's always in his black turtleneck and jeans. Every single day. People do that. And these are little elements you can bring into your game. Maybe you have an NPC fighter who guides the characters through the tunnels to head the castle, and as you're walking you realize, why are you barefoot? And he's like, oh, it's healthier. It allows circulation when you're in full plate armor. And maybe later on you can bring him back. Like, there's a grand ball and it's you again! You're still without shoes! Yes! And then he finds his wife who's a princess who likes walking barefoot. Okay. Instinctive responses. This is something that I found very well done in The Burning Wheel. The idea that you create this list of when blank happens, I blank. For example, when I'm insulted, I draw my sword. Or when I think there's danger, I grab my sword hilt. Or at the first sign of trouble, I hide. Now, at first it sounds like you have an advantage. You always do this. So you're never not ready for the battle, or you're never not ready to hide. But then consider when it starts also becoming scenes that just show you can't help it. You're having a dinner and the guy looks at you and, what are you wearing? Is there something wrong with what I'm wearing? Now, imagine if these are NPCs. Then suddenly your players will find themselves entering situations unexpectedly that they'll have to either diffuse or deal with. Mother and father issues, very universal. I'd add brother and sister as well, but they're not as striking. Phobias and aggression. Aggression is very common and very much often abused in games for NPCs. You always have that angry guy in the bar who starts a fight and the players have to deal with him. But imagine if it was the woman instead who starts the fight because she thinks you're all being too noisy. How will the players react to that? And they don't know that she's actually a barbarian with half orc blood. Then it becomes more interesting because she does it in a gentle way. So make your characters unexpected, give them those little twists. Secrets, of course, their loyalties, where their beliefs stand, where their faith stands, what they're ashamed of, or what they find shameful. Okay, ask the NPCs is these are the questions that run in my head whenever I find myself in scenes where the NPC has to do stuff and I'm not quite certain what direction to take. So I ask the NPC themselves, you know, why have the PCs do it for you? So you have the nobleman who has a problem with the dragon. Why the PCs? Why them in particular? Why not another group? Why not a hired group of mercenaries? Why haven't you done the task yourself? Many forget to ask that question, and sometimes the players break it up and they suddenly just go, basta! But, you know, it's nice to have an answer to that. And this can even apply to smaller tasks, like maybe the innkeeper suddenly asks you to please go out the back to check if his daughter is outside. That makes you wonder, why didn't he just do it himself?
Because I have customers.
Or because he killed her and he wants you to find the body and he'll frame you. Who among the PCs do you trust the most? It is inherent that when you meet a group, there will be someone you like and someone you won't like. The NPCs have to have that moment too. Because that will be reflected easily by that NPC will tend to talk to a certain person. The group arrives, they have questions, he focuses on that person. Of course, there's the opposite. Who do you trust the least? And that's when it gets more interesting, when that NPC might be the type who spies on that particular player and brings up those questions. And what do you like about the PCs as a group? There's a reason the NPCs interact with the PCs. If the answer is nothing, then make sure the PCs feel it when the NPC, get out of here, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But, you know, unless they're magically geas to do something with you despite hating you so much, I don't think there's a reason for certain NPCs to stick around you if they don't like you. No one really does that in the real world. If we don't like someone, we ignore them, we deny they exist, we pretend that they're not even in the room. So there's the group, and there's the... yeah. So there. So that's pretty much the topic for NPCs. We can still talk about the BWTM. Kasi, well, I was expecting kasi there was a large group and I'll be told na naman I'm taking too long. So I'll just quickly go through the random starting the tips. So first, John Wick taught me this little technique in his game House of the Blooded, and I highly recommend it. Whenever you create a character, PC or NPC, think of the 3 true things. The 3 true things are things that everyone knows and are absolutely true. Like maybe the character, one of the 3 true things might be something as simple as he's an orphan. Or it might be something as big as he will always keep his word. And then it becomes a nice guide on how to portray the character, how to deal with situations and the like. You come up with these 3, and that's enough for a starting NPC. as the scenes progress, you can just add more details to it. It's always fun to let the players define it better. Do not underestimate seeing NPCs as events. Well, they're not just people. The main people in the game are the players. The NPCs, there are moments of interaction, there are moments of spotlighting, there are moments of telling the story forward. So don't be afraid to see them as events. Meaning, if you need to cut the event and move to the next one, then just let the NPC leave. There's no need to bring them back. So named NPCs can still be supporting roles and can be major roles. And one of the main reasons that works best is when you want to give the players the semblance of not yet being certain. Some GMs make it too clear. NPC has no name, he has nothing really to offer. NPC has name, he's important. Sometimes it helps to throw in a few red herrings, so to speak. But if you make every single NPC named every time, you're just gonna hurt yourself and the players won't even notice you're having so much trouble. It's a lose-lose situation. So just choose the right moments when the named ones are useless too. Okay? Always though, build up the NPCs that the players show interest in, even if they're the ones you hated. Because they will like that NPC so much that when you put them in danger, they will do what they can to help that character. Or make sure they kill it. Don't worry too much over timelines and flowcharts. There are some people who feel when you create NPCs, you have to come up with a checklist of what they do, when they'll do it, and all this and that. That's fine, that can help. But I see that only important when you're talking about, let's say, it's the arch rival, so his plans go directly against the players. For most NPCs, all you really need to do is write down a quick, what is their short-term goal? What do they want right now? And then if you want, you can add a long-term goal. What do they want before they die? And from those two, you can already move forward easily. Finally, it's the last item. Keep in mind that while PCs advance with levels and stats, new stuff they can do, NPCs level up in terms of how important they are in the story. You have the nameless guard who, whenever you pass at the gate, says, "Hey sir, it's you again." Next time you pass by, "Back from the quest, sir?" Then the players start to get interested. "Why does he always talk to me?" And then finally it passes by one time, the guard's missing. And then the player decides, "I'll look for that guard." That's you being, the players are telling you that the NPC has leveled up. He needs a name. Once you start giving him a name, you have to decide now, okay, so what was his goal? Okay, maybe he likes the other player character, so he's saying hi to you to get to her. Okay, so you write that down. So now you have the developing story which you never even planned ahead of time. So whenever an NPC levels up, we're talking about the NPC having a greater role in the narrative, a greater role in what the players want to explore. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And the example was her. For those who watched The Walking Dead, she was a nobody we all hated. Then she fought her husband. Then we became invested. And now in the series, I'm sorry, she's far better than the lead. Your
kids to kill. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, when NPCs gain the attention of the players, or in TV shows, the audience, they get larger roles. And larger roles doesn't have to mean cooler stats or more stuff. Although those also are fun. They just have to make sure that they feel more important and they get to have a larger role to play in the overall story. So there, that's pretty much it. Tuwa ko eh. Kasi it's formal. An app was used to make that, not just Photoshop. So, but you made it when someone else makes a picture of yours a meme without your consent.
Without your consent.
So you just have to own it. So at least it doesn't bother you. No, it's not. It bother me. It's just really fun. So yeah, so that's my little quick guide on NPCs. And you'll notice that a lot of them can be applied to characters, to creating characters. Because I guess deep down, GMs, there are people who say, I love being a player because I get to play this character. GMs get to play 10 to 50 characters each game. And that's why I like being a GM, because it allows me to stretch my props and chops and see how far I can go. Can I play a nun who's hell-bent in killing everyone who's in her church? Can I play the innocent waif who actually is receiving messages from the dark god Cthulhu to save the church for its own nefarious reasons? If I can play both and the players end up not knowing who to trust, then I'm doing a good job. If I do it well enough that when the waif gets hurt, the players are all no, then I'm even doing a greater job. I know it will sound strange, but I always felt that if you get your players emotional enough, explode or cry, then you're doing a good job. Because that's what good movies also do to you. When you're watching a scene and when something happened and you end up yelling, "Punyeta, no! Why did that happen? Tama po kasi!" Then that's a good movie because you're pulled in. Likewise, when the movie has that scene and the next thing you know, you're crying because the Hulk is so lonely. Oops, spoiler. Then you know you're doing a good job. So for me, when games have that effect, I feel like I'm doing a good job. There is, of course, the caveat that just because you did a good job doesn't mean the players were ready for it. So you have to make sure your players are. Or you end up having girlfriends who get traumatized because their boyfriend wanted them to play a dramatic game. So yeah. Any other questions? Because that's pretty much it. I'll change the slide.
About the 3 true facts. When we play it always feels like important characters have 3 true facts because you mentioned it directly. 3 true things about blah blah blah. It's really a person walks into the scene and then cut away 3 things, and then other characters don't. Is that do you consistently do that or not necessarily? It just so happens that way, or what are your thoughts on that telling the 3 true facts?
Again, they only matter with characters who I feel deserve to have it. And usually, my gauge for that is whether the people would have known about those facts. It's sort of like when you see someone who's, let's say, remotely popular, and there's 3 things everyone knows about that person. Then that's when I give it. But when the person isn't really that important, or sometimes it might be a person who I want the players to just have the freedom to develop, so that's when I throw it to the players. And then in houses, that's when the group all gathers dice and have their wagers, and they all start contributing their own little details to it. When you have characters created through shared narrative control, it's trickier because you really have to be fast on your feet to adjust to it. Because you might be told, she's a widow, she murdered all her husbands, her last husband is still alive and might be murdered this year. She's really in love with the husband. So now suddenly you have to deal with that. And then one last player suddenly adds, she's actually a man. So suddenly you had your preconceptions, you now have to adjust them, you have to change, you have to adjust. And sometimes you have to do it fast enough that the players don't feel like they've said too much. Because if you take too long, the players will think, oh, I have to hold back. I have to lessen my concepts. So it's nice to spotlight good, important characters by throwing the three true facts. But it's also fun to just toss it in sometimes because the facts don't have to be super important. Like the 3 true facts for, let's say, the bartender might simply be always happy, survived a war in the past and never drinks. They're not that important, but by just stating those things, you now know, the players now know how to relate to the character. Some might even, oh, why did you drink with me? Because they like to see if the guy will give in, or talk about the war. I heard you survived. So, the 3 true facts are a good way to initiate interactions. That's it.
For the three true facts.
3 true things.
Curse
There
you,
go.
John Wick.
Do you immediately say these, or do you just interject it while you're telling the story?
Normally, normally I state it as part of the moment I see the person. So like, you know,
It's literally
well,
what's in.
in Houses of the Blooded, the games, a large majority of the games are in parties. Because the main premise of Houses of the Blooded is you're all immortals with land and titles, and you can only die through murder, poison, or suicide. You can't die from old age, you can't die from sickness. So, you spend most of the time partying, and romance, and getting into
Art.
intrigues and art with others of your kind. So whenever they see a new character, there literally is that moment of Duke Dre steps in, and these are the 3 things you all know about him. He always keeps his word. He's absolutely ruthless. And what's the last one? Keeps his word, absolutely ruthless. Oh, I forgot. That's because we have 2 versions of him now.
That's your fault.
Yeah, the guy claiming to be his clone. But see, with those little intrigues, the players now have their starting points on how to inject into the story. I can't remember what the other one was, but that best exemplified how he fell in love with this woman. The woman goes, I can't, I have a husband. And then he goes, then I shall grant you your wish. And then comes back the next party with a box and her husband's head. Now you're free. I love you that much.
On the side, I remember, I think it was Generation X, the book. Almost every character, when they were introduced, or the narrator introduces the character, parang their 3 favorite Jeopardy categories are. So it's a similar mechanic, but every character had favorite Jeopardy categories. But they're not even told as dialogue. It's the narrator just saying, these are his favorite Jeopardy categories. So, nice parallel. There are different ways to define the NPC.
Yeah, and ultimately you just want to try to step forward from the, I guess in lack of a better real term for it, that I'm the PC and I'm afraid to trust, so I'll make the first few turns do nothing but ask you questions if I trust you. And normally in one-shot games, that when you have players spending the first 2 hours trying to decide if they trust each other, and then you cram the last 30 minutes to complete the damn story, because finally they trust each other. So it's stuff like that that you want to get past, and the 3 true things helps you do that. So, anything else? Okay, so that's it. Thank you. Yay.